Because bear in mind, I am diabetic. So my approach to this pandemic was just be paranoid, literally. Rather be the last alive paranoid individual on this planet than the first dead smart guy. So there's a lot of dark moments that one goes through alone, and you can't even reach out to friends sometimes because you can barely just take enough breath just to think. For me, there was a point where you're now grappling with your mortality and you're having thoughts of, do I call people to say goodbye? Because you know what time it is. And I think for me, this is what COVID is all about. It's just testing our humanity at the end of the day. Are we willing to be uncomfortable to save our fellow man?
My next guest I met while sitting in an edit suite at SuperSport, and we were busy preparing to go live in studio for the African Cup of Nations in Egypt. I can't remember the exact year, but I'm sure my next guest, Max, would remember that. How you doing, Max?
I'm well, Siraj. I am more than well, to be honest with you. I'm blessed.
Now, it's nice to have you here, especially after the experience that you've had recently, which we will definitely talk about in further detail. But I must just take you back to that African Cup of Nations. You came into my edit suite, you dropped off a massive stack of, well, it's a massive script for the live broadcast for the in studio from Randburg, SuperSport. And I looked at you, and that was the first time I met you. And I was like, this is the first producer for a live match that would come to a highlights editor and give me the full lowdown in writing. Did you remember that?
Jeez, you're taking me back. I think that was 2006, if my memory serves me correct. That would have been the Egypt AFCON.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Opening game.
Those are happy days. You take me back. But yeah, that's my nature, though, Siraj. For me, I see production as a team sport, and having played team sport myself, is that you're only as strong as your weakest link, and you need to get everybody to pull together. You need to get everybody to feel part of the team. I think even before the effort comes, everybody needs to feel included. And if you have a common cause and a common purpose, then at least you're starting off on the right foot at the end of the day.
Your role at SuperSport at that stage was what?
I was at SuperSport for about 15 years and took multiple roles. What a lot of people actually don't even understand is that, or don't even know, I started off my journey at SuperSport in the marketing department as a junior promo producer. Fast forward to 2006, then I was executive producer for football, meaning that I was responsible for all football at SuperSport, running both the PSL and African leagues, and also running the English Premier League that was also coming through. Yeah, so that was my role basically.
I left SuperSport. I was working in Uganda, working for a competitor of SuperSport at that time. It was called GTV, and I was working for the company Robert Patil's RP Productions, and I was there every week doing highlight packages, and then once a month the live guys would come in to do live soccer. But then you and your team from SuperSport came in and you did an amazing project. Just give us a sense of what was that whole project?
Yeah, so after spending about 10 years in SuperSport South Africa, primarily focusing on building the PSL brand, myself and Alvin Nyker were the founding producers and director for what is known as PSL TV right now. But yeah, fast forward to 2010, which was the World Cup in South Africa. After that exercise where I was fortunate enough to lead the team, I wanted new challenges. And at the same time, SuperSport was now developing or venturing out onto the African continent, the rest of Africa, as they call it, basically every country outside of South Africa. So our first project was in Nigeria. where we identified locals, trained them. So the first time we started doing the local league in Nigeria, that's a football league, we literally used to fly 30, 35 staff members from South Africa, from cameras to crew to racks to directors, producers, you name it. And after, I think, maybe 3, 4 years, we managed to then groom the locals to a point where by the time I left in 2015, and Nigeria was self-sufficient in terms of the locals were producing their own matches. They were producing all content from Nigeria. Supersport had big investment in Nigeria where we had full studios. We had 3 working studios just for Supersport, and then Mnet also had their studios as well. We also had a fleet of Obi trucks there. So it was basically a mini Randburg in terms of we had MCRs there, we had studios. We did a number of live productions from there. And then also venturing out into the local sport. So we covered football, the Nigerian Premier League. We covered basketball. We covered beach soccer. We've covered polo. It's quite a number of sports that we've actually done up in Nigeria as well. So that for me, to be honest, was very rewarding because I've always had a passion for the continent. You know, I do identify myself as an African first, South African second, and then Xhosa third. That is who I am, if you had to ask me. So being on the continent and contributing, you know, by skills transfer is something that even up to this day, you know, I'm very proud of. You know, that's one of the things that I take as a success. We did the same thing in Ghana likewise as well in terms of setting up, doing the local league there, training individuals as well. And thereafter, we then also moved to replicate the same project in East Africa, where we set up shop in Nairobi, Kenya, for what we'd call the East Africa Hub. And that was basically to facilitate the local sports in Kenya, but also the neighboring states. For example, we did Uganda League, we did Tanzania League, also ventured up into Ethiopia a number of times, as well as Rwanda and the Burundis of the world as well.
You know, during that period, I hardly saw you because you were always out, away from South Africa. And I remember once when you, actually many times when you would say, as luck would have it, you never experienced a winter in South Africa for many years because of your travels.
Yeah, I'm a summer baby. Me and winter don't get along at all. So I was in a position where I could strategically make sure that when winter hit South Africa, I was definitely nowhere near the Southern Hemisphere. So I would be up in tropical climate. At one point, actually, for a few years, I think maybe 3 years in a row, I actually arranged to have a tournament in Tanzania. So literally, I'd spend my summers, a part of it, all South African winter, in tropical climate in Tanzania, complaining about the heat. So yeah, I was able to maneuver those things with the little powers that I do have. Yeah. So, but now I'm paying for it since I've been back to South Africa. I think I've experienced 3 winters, and it's been quite rough for a person who who's avoided winters. You know, there was a good stretch of about, I think, 10 years actually where I didn't have any winters at all.
Well, did that play also in your a role in your decision when you left the African continent to go and work in Jamaica?
Well, partly. And secondly, you know, I'm an adventurous being. I think getting out of one's comfort zone is always good. And to explore, to be honest with you, you know, go out there and see the world and challenge yourself. It can only enrich you. And I was very fortunate that with the capabilities and the skills that I do have, that I can go out there to the international market and shop my expertise.
If you were to compare the skill levels of your colleagues from the rest of Africa, I won't include South Africa, the rest of Africa, and you compare it to the skill levels of the people in Jamaica, how was that?
Look, I don't think it's fair to compare. It's the same as trying to compare Nigeria with South Africa. I don't think it's fair because it's not really apples to apples. Because ultimately, there's different experiences and different exposures. SuperSport in South Africa has been doing international sports for a very long time. They've been industry leaders, if you ask me, in terms of their coverage of certain sports. Whereas on the continent, the guys are still behind or still, learning some of those arts and craft. But we are proud to say that, as I mentioned earlier, that we left Nigeria fully capable of being able to produce their own. Likewise in Kenya, likewise in Zambia as well. So when I then moved to the Caribbean, Jamaica specifically, and Trinidad, where I was based, they're a lot smaller in terms of the market. The population is tiny as well. They're small little islands at the end of the day. So you can imagine the TV industry is also obviously in proportion to the greater community. So primarily I was there because I needed to upskill the individuals in terms of production. So there, once again, I was involved with sport, football, basketball, cricket, and athletics. Athletics is big on that side there as well. And I also did quite a lot of entertainment shows, because you can imagine, soca, dance hall, reggae concerts, those are all quite big. They're all meshed in the culture there as well. But as much as I was there on a skills transfer exercise, I feel that I gained a lot more personally as an individual, just by being embraced, by the Jamaicans and the Trinis as well.
And then when you came back to Africa, you came to a completely different environment from what you left. Can you describe that environment and the opportunity that you saw and pursued?
Yeah, it's bittersweet, to be honest, here, Siraj. So since I left SuperSport 2015, in the subsequent years after that, SuperSport International then made a decision to pull out of the African operations, meaning that they closed shop in Nigeria. They retrenched over 80 staff in Nigeria. Likewise in Kenya, where we also had another hub, they closed shop there and retrenched another 50 odd individuals, which personally I thought was not necessarily the right thing to go, because we were so established within those territories to service the neighboring countries. And strategically, it was actually a great move before, but they had the reasons to make that decision. And it also then created an opportunity for me, because there's a huge void that was left with a giant like SuperSport leaving those territories. At one point we were doing 9 leagues in 9 different countries on the continent. So I take pride in the fact that as much as SuperSport, the business, the company, vacated those territories, but the skills that were imparted on the individuals, those we could never pack up and bring back to South Africa at the end of the day. So we empowered individuals, and those individuals are themselves right now have grown. They really impressive. I talk to them on a regular basis. I was very close to my team, and so therein lies the opportunity.
What is the service of your company, A1?
So my company is called A1 Media, and primarily we are in the host broadcasting space, consultancy, production management, but basically is to provide turnkey broadcast solutions. So what that means, it could be a simple thing as I'm being sent by FIFA to go to Madagascar to go look at the facilities there, and then write a report to then tell them, what the capabilities of those facilities there as well. Or to being sent to Namibia to go produce a full World Cup qualifier for either CAF, FIFA, or also providing facilities to do a ladies golf tournament in Kenya. So in essence, that's what we do. We are broadcast consultants, and we can provide full turnkey solutions, from a single person production to a multi-camp production as big as a golf tournament. So that's what we do.
And during normal pre-COVID world, offering the service also offered its own logistical nightmares, especially when you have to make sure crew and equipment is at the right place for the games, and just give us a sense of the type of logistics you had to deal with on a weekly basis, just to make sure if you had to facilitate a game, a live broadcast, what would be the challenges you had to face?
Yeah, logistics are quite a challenge on the continent. You can imagine, for example, I need to have a production in Madagascar, and I don't have crew available in South Africa, so therefore I need to find crew from Kenya, and I need to then move them to Kenya. So from Kenya to Madagascar, it does become quite a logistics nightmare as well. Or even just crossing borders, moving trucks across borders. That I think is the biggest challenge that we have to deal with. Fortunately, we're very comfortable within those countries in terms of we've built relationships. So when need be, we can even go as high as calling a ministry of sport or a ministry of finance in certain countries to then help us, cross those borders. But yeah, it is quite a challenge. And then each nation is different. For example, Zimbabwe is different from Botswana. There might be neighboring states, but working in those climates, those environments are two totally different things. Having to move a truck from Kenya to Ethiopia, in itself, you having to deal with a lot of other challenges, such as the threat of domestic terrorism, for example, because there is certain parts of Kenya where it's very unstable. So those are things that you need to always take into account. But primarily, I always say that I'm in the people business. It's not a technology business. It's all about people. So now having the responsibility of people that are now in your care, because once I hire Siraaj for his services and I move Siraaj from the comfort of his home to go to Namibia, to Zimbabwe, to Madagascar, to Rwanda, Siraaj's life is basically in my hands. And so to secure and make sure that Siraaj then gets back home is quite a challenge, to be honest, and quite a big responsibility.
Now we in COVID, and obviously there was a long period where nothing was happening, and then soccer started, the different leagues started playing soccer at closed off events with no fans, and then you had to start servicing your clients again. And how was that experience if you compare to before?
After the 10 months or so, leagues, as you said, started playing slowly but surely. It's a different ball game, to be honest with you, because you basically equate it to planning in darkness, because there's so much uncertainty, and yet, for a successful production, there's a lot of planning that needs to be involved. You have to plan, otherwise, we spoke about logistics alone, just to guarantee that the vehicle will get there on time, just to make sure that you've got crew available. And now with COVID testing, it's just thrown the cat amongst the pigeons, to be honest with you. So it's something that we need to adapt, and just move with the times. I found that you can't be rigid. You have to be very, very flexible, even to a point where what is fact today might not be fact tomorrow, which is not, it's not great. It's not the best environment if you need to plan and focus and and have, plans in place, especially where you're then going to spend money to go to certain places. It's a complete nightmare, man. That's the one thing that working on the African continent has really taught me, is that you got to be flexible.
You have to deal with the crap with a smile, otherwise you'll go mad.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then I bumped into you, Mishka and I bumped into you at Pick n Pay on a Saturday afternoon, and we briefly bumped elbows, and then 3 days later you called me and you gave me the news. What did of you being diagnosed with COVID, and then it was a completely crazy and scary experience that Mishka and I had with you through that period. But can you share with us your experience with COVID? First of all, why? How did you get to know that you got COVID and dealing with it or surviving it, I think is the best term.
Yeah, cheapest. That was pre-COVID, as I call it, when we met. I think the date was actually the 20th of December. And at that stage already, with, as you mentioned earlier, with sports happening around, I had been traveling, doing a number of games. So I think at that stage, I'd already done about 12 COVID tests. So I was then due to travel to Botswana on the Monday. So on the Sunday after I met you guys, I went down to my local Lancet lab where I've been a number of times, and I did my test as usual. Go home, pack, ready to travel on Monday morning. I wake up on Monday morning to an SMS notify me that I've tested positive. I think the actual wording is that COVID detected. So bear in mind that I've received these SMSs on countless times, So literally it's like the formalities. I get your SMS, okay, not a problem. Wait for the email to get the actual certificate, because when you're traveling, you need the actual certificate. And I almost had to do a double take. I was like, no, man, it can't be me. Oh no, that is me. Oh my goodness, I've got COVID. So that kind of took me by surprise, because bear in mind, I am diabetic. So my approach to this pandemic was just be paranoid, literally. Rather be the last alive paranoid individual on this planet than the first dead smart guy, who's taken this pandemic for granted. So when I did get the results, I was not symptomatic or anything like that as well, because I was ready to travel. I had a production the following day. Then obviously you have to observe the protocols, which means that you need to quarantine immediately. So basically take yourself out of circulation, which I did. So that was Monday, the 22nd of December, if memory serves me correct. And that was the beginning of quite a journey. I stand here today, as a testament to surviving COVID, as an advocate to what COVID can do. So for me, I had the full symptoms. Literally, I had the full bouquet treatment of COVID. So
how many days after your diagnosis did these symptoms start appearing?
So after my diagnosis on the 22nd, literally that week, they started coming in. So aches and pains, I think, was the first one. And then my smell went. And then your appetite declined. And then my taste and smell then disappeared. And then fatigue started kicking in. So it's all the normal symptoms that, there's nothing new about them, because we've all had aches and pains, fever, nausea, headaches. So all of those is symptoms that we've dealt with before. Nothing new. The only problem is that they're all happening at the same time, coupled with a lot of fatigue as well. So it changes who you are. Those that know me, I'm a very bubbly, lively individual. And it literally put me to bed. I was, at the height of COVID, I was sleeping for about 20 hours a day, because I just couldn't do anything else. That's how fatigued one is. And yeah, you feel nar, and you can't eat. It's terrible. But that was not even the biggest challenge with COVID, because once those other symptoms kicked in, then the breathing challenges start. That for me that's the dangers, and that was the worst part of COVID, of my journey having COVID.
How did you know at what point would you need to go to the hospital, or that? Because I remember you described it as at night you had to fight with this monster, and the one thing what was the one or two few things that helped you fight this monster?
Yeah, the beast comes out to play at night. So yeah, it was quite a rough journey, a journey that has one thinking about their own mortality, to be honest with you. Um, as men, normally when we're sick, we always the first to announce it to the whole world that we die. Until you are faced with death straight on, then you're not speaking to anybody. You're just trying to get your breath. So I was very fortunate that I've got my doctor who guided me. Who she almost kind of she's got the playbook. She works at the in Santon Mediclinic. So and she's in the ward, dealing with COVID patients, and she's been doing that for the last 10 months. Or 8 months by the time I was diagnosed. So she was able to tell me that this is what's going to happen. So I wasn't caught off guard by anything. So even when times when I couldn't breathe, where I felt that my breathing was not sufficient, that I'm actually suffocating, I would literally get on the phone with her and she'll literally calm me down. But my saving grace, which I would recommend to anybody, is get yourself an oximeter. It's a small little device, which basically just measures your vitals. You can get it at your local discount for as little as $300.
No more $300. It's now, I saw on Takealot, the last time I saw it on Takealot, it's about 800, 900 Rand for that unit.
Oh, wow. Oximeters are nothing new. They've always been at the skim, gathering dust. Oximeter, it's the same thing when you're in a hospital, that there's a small little device that put on your finger, which basically just measures your pulse. It measures your O2 levels. And that is important because with COVID, it attacks your lungs, your respiratory system, which makes it difficult for you to breathe. And with oxygen distribution in your body, lack of that then has dire consequences for you. So I was able to track from the comfort of my home in my state of discomfort what my O2 levels were doing and what my vitals were basically doing. And that was my saving grace, because regardless of how I was feeling, externally, at least I could anchor my hope on that my O2 levels were at a sufficient level. So yeah, so that little tiny oximeter device, which was $299 back then, literally was my saving grace.
I remember the call I got from you, one of the happiest calls I got from you when you said, I'm over the hill, or something like that. I can't remember the exact words, but it's like, I've pushed through, I'm over, and we were chatting to each other going, thank God you're alive. It's like the weirdest conversations we had about, bro, I'm happy you didn't die. And you're saying, I'm happy. It's the weirdest thing, conversations you never thought you would have with a buddy. And this is what this disease, this epidemic has changed. This is how it has changed our world, that we have the weirdest conversations with friends.
Yeah. Look, it's quite bleak at this present moment. It's very dire. But I think we also should never lose hope. And hope is also highlighting some of the positives, the positive stories, the guys that have survived. I myself have lost an uncle, I've lost friends to the disease. So I'm very grateful to be alive. It does come with a bit of guilt sometimes, because as you're trying to make sense of it, why did you pull through and somebody else didn't pull through at the end of the day? But those are answers to those questions that I don't really have, to be honest with you. It's just now to just celebrate the life that I do have. It's a very odd experience, because COVID is a very lonely journey. And what I mean by that is, first and foremost, you need to isolate. You need to get yourself out of society. So you're basically treated like a leper, stay away, and you're basically on your own, because besides vitamins or anything like that, there's nothing else they can give you. Literally, you're just on your own. And the best thing we can do is we'll give you some oxygen if you really need it. but please try hold out as much as you can because we have a shortage of oxygen. And literally, that's what it is. So there's a lot of dark moments that one goes through alone, and you can't even reach out to friends sometimes because you can barely just take enough breath just to think, let alone now convey those thoughts to somebody else as well. So for me, there was a point where you're now grappling with your mortality and you're having thoughts of, do I call people to say goodbye? Because you know what time it is, or you're feeling that you are quarter to. And then you also then have counter arguments within yourself where you're like, I can't do that because that is giving up. And I need to keep my spirits up and I cannot give up because in essence, you need to fight at the end of the day. So I went through that journey. So coming out of it and being able to talk to you and talk to my friends and talk to my family as well, it's such a relief, when you turn the corner and you know that the worst is behind you and you are getting stronger, and then some of the symptoms start falling off. You get your taste buds back, you get your smell back, nausea disappears, the headaches disappear, and you're coming back to good health. Breathing takes a bit of a while. The fatigue will stay with you for a while. And I'm very fortunate enough as well that I haven't had any long-term damage. So I'm more than happy, Siraj. You have no idea, having been face to face with death and coming through to spread the gospel.
But then your next challenge, I remember you telling me, is like, I need to go out now and first of all, what's it when you had to go do your COVID test, your post-COVID test, and then also having to go get groceries was not as easy as it used to be.
Yes, so after 10 days, I was now faced with being COVID free. Now I'm allowed to go out back into society. And I got to say, I was very uncomfortable with it, to be honest with you. It was because I've been in this environment, which was almost like my safety little cocoon. And now I need to go out there to this big bad world and try avoid this invisible enemy. So it was quite a daunting task, to be honest with you. So the first thing I did, I think on day 14, I actually waited 4 extra days, to be honest with you, to even go out, was to go back to Lancet because I had some productions later on. But I thought, and it's not necessary, to be honest with you. After your 10 days of quarantine, you don't need to go out and get a test. But because I needed a test to then go participate within my work environment, I went to go do a test. And I was just standing in the queue, so paranoid, like looking around as if I can see this virus around, trying to avoid it. So you go through these little silly little things, But yeah, eventually after that, I got, because you have to, because you now have to go out and get groceries or go to a discam or, just try get back to society or normality. And that was, yeah, it was quite a daunting task, to be honest. Look, I'll be honest with you. I just celebrated the month since contracting COVID, and even now, still going out there, still very uncomfortable, to be honest with you.
What's that last message that you can share with people with regards to this whole COVID experience and what you take away from this whole experience?
Life lessons are expensive. We all have to pay school fees, as I like to call it. But I also believe that we determine what the school fees are. How much are you willing to pay to learn a lesson? So for quite a lot of people, COVID is still just about numbers. This is the infection rate, this is the death rate, and so on and so forth. But unfortunately, for quite a lot of people, and where we are right now, COVID has a face, has a name, is a relative, is a colleague. So for those people, it's now become even more clear that this thing is doesn't discriminate. It's not looking at over 65s. It's people your age, it's people younger than you, it's people with conditions, it's people that are fit that go to the gym every single day. So I'm hoping that people are going to learn from that close proximity of COVID. Because in essence, the disease itself doesn't spread. People spread the disease. So if we all adhere to the protocols and do what we need to do to protect our fellow mankind, because that's what this is all about. So even when you then contract COVID, when they ask you to go isolate, it's primarily for your fellow mankind. It's not even for you. Because the doctors know that there's chances are you could come out, or chances are you couldn't come out. But ultimately, it's about looking out for your fellow man. And I think for me, this is what COVID is all about. It's just testing our humanity at the end of the day. Are we willing to be uncomfortable to save our fellow man? And that's where we found wanting.
Thank you so much, Max. Once again, I must say I'm happy to see you live. I'm looking forward to our rounds of golf again, when we're both able to go out and hit some balls into the woods from tree to tree. But thank you so much for sharing your hectic and personal journey. And yeah, thank you so much.
No, man, thank you very much, Siraaj. Much appreciated. It has been quite a journey, my friend, but we're not out the woods yet. So just like our golf, we've still got a few bunkers that we need to negotiate before we can eventually get to the 19th. So hopefully, not in the not too distant future, we can meet in the 19th and have an ale. Thank you very much, my brother. Yeah.
Cool, brother. Stay safe.